obviously like a lot to unpack here for the 6-3 Cleveland Browns, who have an interesting win total number in the market. Their playoff make-miss. They are still minus to make the playoffs right now with Deshaun Watson done for the year here. And we can get into the game on Sunday against Pittsburgh, the betting market there, which is basically now like pick the winner of the game. And the total resembles like an Iowa Big Ten game, also about 33.5 right now at BetMGM. Ken, hit us with your betting thoughts here. We'll get through all of it, even like Defensive Player of the Year with Myles Garrett. Deshaun Watson done for the year, Ken, for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, really interesting. And there's like a Woj bomb. So this is like a Shefty bomb, right? Something like that earlier today, where we had talked on Monday about like, you know, he was hurt. And I said I didn't want to bet the game until I knew whether he was going to play or not. But I don't, even if we thought there was a chance we'd miss the game, I don't think either of us necessarily saw this coming. And it was, you could tell it was a shock to the system for betting markets also, because they were all open when the Schefter tweet came out. Like you could bet anything. Like if you had the fastest hands on earth, you know, and could just bet at every site at the same time or every app at the same time, the second the tweet's out, everything's open. I hope we've kind of almost trained people. We've gone through this exercise so many times, and we're not going to be on the air when most of these things happen. You know, like we caught the A-Chan one a few weeks ago when we bet Stroud, and like he went out to a big favorite. Like we were on the air for it. We could do that one together. Couldn't do this one together. So like the most obvious application of this, and like we'll start basic, is like that comes out and you probably have like 15 seconds in some places to go bet the game spread for Sunday, and to go bet the total for Sunday, and to go bet the money line for Sunday. And it's like, sometimes I think people are like, oh, I grabbed +3. Like, great. Like you made a good bet because the market's going to move and now you can figure out what you want to do. All three were available options to you, because in this kind of a situation, like the total's going to go down, maybe a lot. The money line's going to change, just like the spread is going to change. So your most basic applications when you see something like that, and you also have to think really in the weeds, it's like, where do you want to go bet this? And like, do you want to lose an account potentially if you know, get a ton of closing line value? But like, you know, the most obvious applications when the Adam Schefter tweet comes out that Watson's out for the season are, you want to go bet the Sunday stuff as fast as possible. That's going to pay it's going to pay first. And you're going to be in, you know, you're going to be in good, and you can figure out, do you want a middle? What do you want to do later? So all that's moved. Like we don't get to talk about that anymore. That's the stuff that gets pulled right away. That's the stuff that gets adjusted right away. Playoffs gets pulled right after that. AFC North gets pulled almost at the same time. And so that stuff's all done. And there isn't like the obvious bet to make there. That was like my morning was kind of like, all right, like, can I go find anything really fast of the things we just talked about? But I think what you and I can talk about is like the fringe stuff, the gray area stuff. Like what else can we draw any conclusions about as a result of this injury? And this will be more guessing. It won't be like this number has to move. Like it won't be that, because all that stuff moves in 5 seconds. So it's just, you know, hopefully people that listen to the show kind of like know how this works by now. When this kind of stuff comes out, your time window to bet is extremely small. Where you go, it might already be pulled. Ordering where you go first. What do you want to bet? How much do you want to bet on it? Like, this is all stuff that happened with me this morning. I'm sure with like thousands of other bettors this morning. And we were all trying to do it basically as fast as possible. That stuff's done. So we can talk a little more about that and like how everything changed and like kind of like the repercussions. And then there's also the second conversation, which is like the fun, what else is kind of impacted by this, even if it's like only a little bit.
You're a bettor out there, the listener, viewer of the show. I cannot recommend highly enough, like, turning notifications on for like Schefter, etc., Rappaport. So like you get this stuff, and like the advantage that you will have over someone that doesn't have this, you get it immediately to try and bet, like, is invaluable. That you get
even
that
if it's
pushed to your phone,
seconds.
basically.
Even if it's 5 seconds.
It's a matter of seconds.
5 seconds
like,
is insanely valuable.
You need that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be dramatic, just that like I bet.
I am.
So, like, I can tell you, like...
It's the difference between 15... in a market that takes, like, this much money, the difference between 15 and 30 seconds might be, you know, $50,000. Like, it might... I mean, it really... Like, it's... Why not do it?
Not an impossible schedule here for the Browns to navigate with that defense. Not an impossible schedule.
A lot of really small point spreads on that list, by the way. A lot of like sub 3 either way, a lot of coin flip kind of markets. And the really interesting thing there, and I'm sure people probably picked it up as Nick read those games, they're playing every other team that wants their spot. All of them. They're playing all of them, like the ones that actually have a chance. They're playing Denver. Denver thinks they can get the spot. They're playing the Jets. The Jets want the spot. And maybe Rodgers starts that game by then, by the way, because that's late in the season. They're playing, and like very reasonable with when that game is. They play the Texans. The Texans want that spot. They're in the playoffs right now. They play Jacksonville. Houston might win the AFC South. Jacksonville might need that game to make my problem with the Browns making it is every week it's like the team that's going to pass them if they win. Like this is not a polarizing schedule like Chiefs twice and bad teams. It's all the teams competing with them. It makes it so much more interesting. I do like a couple teams potentially at big prices to make the playoffs instead of them. I don't think their market's crazy. They're make miss based on that schedule. Again, like they have the best defense. They've been pretty good in these games. Like there's reason to think this can still happen. I don't think this is like an immediate pull the plug on their season.
Deshaun Watson done for the year, and anything that you want to bet as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Browns are still probably a decent. I don't know if I would want to. I think the what is the number move to? We were talking. I was talking about it yesterday before you got hurt, or
it's like
Sunday before you got hurt.
They're like minus 170 to make.
Interesting. I think it was like minus 350 before Watson got hurt. So yep. I mean, if you wanted to lay that juice, I don't think I would be entirely opposed to doing it because I think if you look at the Browns' schedule, you have Steelers this week. I mean, massive game. For, both AFC North battles, the Thursday game and then the Sunday game between the Steelers and the Browns are just huge for playoff possibilities. At the Broncos, at the Rams, Stafford could be hurt again by then. Jaguars, Bears, at Texans versus the Jets, at the Bengals. Would suspect that the Bengals won't be resting anybody in Week 17 this year. But I think like that schedule to me, with Watson playing the way he did in that one great half he had last week, would be very, very. That's why they were minus 350. And I think the Browns, they just have to get competent quarterback play. Like they just need to be the Steelers 2.0. Find some magic beans laying around on the floor in Cleveland, toss those in the mix and see if you can play great defense and win with running the football. I don't personally love the Browns. I think it's a difficult division. But I do think that they've set themselves up well enough with that comeback win against Baltimore to potentially still make the playoffs in the AFC, especially with the Bills scuffling. And, like you have these teams on the outside, like Cincy, Indy, Buffalo, all 5-4 for Cincy and then 5-5 for those guys. The Raiders still at 5-5, I guess are technically in it too. I think Cleveland can be not as good as Buffalo is when Buffalo's at its best, but a weak Buffalo team, this edition of Buffalo, I think Cleveland is on par with those teams, even without Deshaun Watson, just because that defense is so good.
Cleveland's spot certainly becomes more vulnerable with Deshaun missing the rest of the season. What's your best guess right now for how the AFC playoff picture shapes up? It could even just be the wild card spots if we feel confident in these division leaders.
Yeah, I think Buffalo has to end up, I know that they're, well below 50% right now to make it. We make it 32.6. The market's kind of at right there too at 2-1 or so, or was this morning. Houston's another one where it's really hard to go against great quarterback play. Cincinnati's another one. I still don't think there's going to be a bad team in the AFC playoffs versus the NFC, which I think you're going to see in addition to the NFC South team that wins it. One wild card at least for a team that's not particularly good. I think in the AFC, there's plenty of teams that if Cleveland doesn't end up making it, we're not going to look back and be like, gosh, we lost Cleveland and we gained a team that sucked. I just don't see that happening. I think there's too many good, even a team like the Los Angeles Chargers, great quarterback play. I think that they'll still be a good AFC playoffs without Cleveland, even though it does suck for that franchise. That seemingly can't catch a break, although I don't feel the worst for them.
Why not? Why not?
I mean, like what's the old adage? Like you make your own luck. I feel like the Cleveland Browns have had some bad luck, and they're very, they've created some of their own bad luck.
The AFC, like we all summer, this is going to be one of the great conferences like in the history of football. I'm not like mimicking you, like we both said that. These playoff matchups suck. This is a terrible group of teams. Yeah,
it's not good.
Burrow's out, Allen's out, Herbert's out. Like
Rodgers is out if he comes back. Yeah,
Rodgers is out.
In his place, we get DTR anyway. And Pickett.
Right, and here's like DTR and like Jacksonville's the good team. That's yay! Can't wait for them to lose to somebody after this. Like God, I mean, if you're Kansas City, you're just like awesome. Let's start the playoffs right now. Right now. if they're going to be bad and they're going to lose way more, then it does impact Myles Garrett's ability to win Defensive Player of the Year. Now, my best guess is, and we'll go through the schedule in a second, they feel like 9-8 still to me is like not a floor, but like that's going to happen a lot, and 10-7 is going to happen sometimes, and those are records where he's going to win. To me, he was light years ahead of everyone at the midseason poll, and then beat Baltimore and had a great game. I think he is impossibly ahead right now for this award, and I actually bet some like 2-1 and 220 and 240 on Sunday night when the market reopened, and on Monday, and I think my position's still good, and he's still going to be favored by a lot. Just like I wouldn't bet any more, and I need them to get to the finish line at 9 wins now. If they go like 8-9, and Dallas is like 14-3 or 13, I mean, like they're going to give it to somebody else. That's my thought. And if the Raiders are ever over 500, Crosby's alive. So it does put that a little into flux, that award, where I feel like Garrett had a stranglehold on it if the Browns were going to have competent quarterback play.